She's so good. You can see why I married her. I don't know if you guys know this about yourselves. I know it, but I don't think you know it. Do you know that each and every single one of you guys, ladies, is the best in the world at something? And my question for you is, A, do you know that? And B, if you do know that, does anyone else in your life know about that? Is anyone here, and the thing about, I'm from New Zealand and Australia, we have tall poppy syndrome. This is a tall poppy free zone this evening. And I really would encourage you, when challenged, to embrace just how brilliant you are, the best in the world's best at your specific niche. Would anyone dare like to put their hand up and share with me what they think maybe their world's best genius, talent, skill is? Sal?
Yeah, I reckon I am the world's best art, science and creativity and commerce video coach for women over 50 in the world.
Round of applause, please. Sal, do you mind if I ask you a few more questions around this?
Trick question. Okay, let's go.
No tricks here tonight.
Yeah.
Just a couple.
Of course.
How many people in your life know that about you?
In my life or in the world?
In the world.
In the world? Maybe 1,000.
Okay, how do they know about it?
Social.
Is this a declaration you've got on your social media profile?
I would say I think I have expert visibility strategist for women over 50, I think.
Okay. There is no judgment here either, by the way. This is a learning experience, because there are little tricks and tips and nuances to what we do that can completely supernova how we show up in the world. Let me give you some context. Born in New Zealand, a child of divorce. Anyone else relate with that?
Born in New Zealand?
The divorce, more than anything else. And like a lot of divorces, it was a very dysfunctional divorce, and there was custody battles and foster home visits, and a lot of trauma associated with that as a 3.5-year-old, I took on. I'm a Cancerian and took it on more than my siblings, it seems. For me, my coping mechanism was escapism. And from a very young age, it was computer games and TV. And I would immerse myself for weeks, months, years playing Sega Master System to escape the rigours and the tyranny that was my life at the time. There was a lot of poverty, which is character building, but there was a lot of poverty mindset, which really does all the damage financially. And as I got to 15, it became alcohol. And then at 17, it was gambling. And by the time I hit my mid-20s, it was drugs. And then sex and porn and basically anything you could get hooked on, I was addicted to. And when I got to 35 in 2015, after bouncing along the floor of rock bottom, I finally ground to a halt. And I found myself at home on a Tuesday night, about midnight. I had about 3 bottles of appropriately priced Pinot Noir coursing its way through my veins. And I was sitting in my bed, a laptop on my lap, betting on a horse race in a country I wasn't in, spending money that wasn't mine to spend. And in that moment, a divine moment, I would call it, I had this epiphanous idea that maybe the direction that my life was heading was not the life that I'd imagined for myself as a young boy. And interestingly, and I hope you all think this about yourselves, when I was very young, I always knew that I was going to do amazing things when I was older. And I look back at my life at 35 and I was like, this isn't very amazing. And what was interesting was that on the surface of it, I was very high functioning. I had friends, I had a good job, showed up to work on time for the most part. My boss liked me, my colleagues liked me. I played sport, played cricket at Melbourne University and was the captain of the 4th 11 where I'm looking after the 14, 15 and 16-year-olds while I'm going out and staying up all night putting rails of cocaine in my nose. And I'm pretty sure the parents, if they knew about it at the time, wouldn't be too chuffed. On the laptop, there was a phone number. And it was a phone number I'd never seen before in my life. And it was a phone number for the Gamblers Helpline. And without even hesitating, I picked up my phone and I rang the number. This woman, whose last name I'll never know, but her first name was Mary, and she was my guardian angel whether she realised it or not. Mary Magdalene, I'll call her. Picked up the phone. And she was the first person to ever listen to me without judgment in my entire life while she asked me what was going on, and I blurted out all the worries of the world to this poor woman. And just at the point where she was about to crack, I stopped. And then she shared with me a couple of really fascinating things about degenerate, problem, pathological gamblers. Like, they commit suicide at rates way higher than all the other addictive behaviours. And that put a lightning bolt at me. And I started to realise the seriousness of my situation at the time. Mary put me in touch with the Salvation Army, who ran a problem gambling program that was paid for by the taxes from gambling losses. So for the first time in my betting career, I was actually up. And for a whole year, once a week, I would go and meet Lee, this darling woman whose last name I'll never know, who carried the weight of all of her patience in her face. And she looked probably 25 years older than what she was. And I'm so grateful that she did that. Because in that very first session, she asked me a question about the relationship I had with my mother. Back then, it wasn't a very good one, folks. I broke down and I started bawling my eyes out. And that kick-started a series of chain of events of healing that by the end of 2015, so the phone call to Mary was like April. By the end of 2015, I'd knocked the gambling on the head. I put an incurable autoimmune disease into full remission. By August 2016, I'd given up alcohol. And I'm very proud to stand before you tonight and to share with you that it's just gone 8 years since I touched a single drop, gambled on anything, put anything up my nose. And it's been effortless. You don't have to clap, but thanks. And why do you say it's effortless? Isn't that pretty arrogant? Well, no, because I didn't need to go through any 12-step. I was able to reverse engineer what I'd experienced and figure out a solution to it. And it's not that I have any judgment for anyone that uses any kind of program to get themselves through whatever they're dealing with. But for me, I'm a curious guy and I was able to figure this out. And I kind of like the idea, particularly when it comes to self-talk, where I'm not going into a meeting saying, "G'day there, my name's Laban and I'm an alcoholic," reinforcing that into my subconscious. And this kind of ties into what I want to talk about a little bit later on. So what's the point of telling you all this stuff? Well, when you go through an experience like that and you kind of are healing, you don't have to be healed. The universe, God, source, whatever you want to call it, inevitably will tap you on the shoulder and say, now it's your turn to share this with other people that need your help, Laban. And you go, okay then. Because what a wonderful gift that is. And if anyone has seen that movie, Catch Me If You Can, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. Has anyone seen that movie? Yeah. Anyone not seen that movie? Great movie. Highly recommend, and maybe you want to watch it after hearing this. It's based on a real life character, a criminal by the name of Frank Abagnale. And Frank Abagnale at 17, his parents split up, incidentally, and he became a criminal. And he started forging checks, but then he started impersonating Pan Am airline pilots, and then became this incredible fraud. But one of the frauds he committed was that he taught a whole semester of school as a substitute teacher. And when they interviewed the real life character years later, they said, Mr. Abagnale, how did you get away with that? He said, well, I had the lesson book in front of me and I was one lesson ahead of the kids. And you might have heard that analogy before, but if you haven't, it's one of my favorites, because we don't need to be fully healed to be able to teach people who want help that are a few steps behind. Capiche? 2018, I've done a lot of work. Transformed my body. I lost 60 pounds of body fat, put on about 30 pounds of muscle, all without any steroids, by the way. Completely natural athlete, and I'm feeling pretty good. And I'm walking out of my office in Queen Street in Melbourne. And I used to work as a recruitment consultant for many, many years. IT recruitment, to be precise. And instead of taking an Uber this day, I decided to walk. And as I turned left out of the building, at about 60 yards, I spy this incredible creature. Beautiful beyond words. And she looks back at me. We lock eyes. And what happened next, I can only describe as being struck by a bolt of lightning, picked up by a force far greater than I'll ever comprehend, levitated towards her, plonked down in front of her, and with the confidence of 1,000 Spartan warriors, I said, "Excuse me, but you are stunning. And I wondered if you ever drink with me one time." And she said,
"You look good too."
Now that might sound a little corny, a little cheesy, but it's the truth. And it worked. Within 3 months of Anna and I getting together, Anna became pregnant. And if I could share something heavy with you guys, or personal, is that okay? We found out we were pregnant. That's not the heavy personal part. I was beyond thrilled. 2 weeks later, we lost it. And not only did we just lose it through a miscarriage, it actually turned into an ectopic pregnancy. And because of a misdiagnosis from a couple of doctors at the Royal Women's, Anna nearly died. She had a 10-centimetre blood clot and lost almost 2 litres of blood, which when you're her size is almost all of it. Now, the way that my 2 bosses treated me during that time was a catalyst for me to tell the employment world to stick it. And I'd always had these entrepreneurial ideas. I resigned, started 2019, started Carnivore Consulting, recruitment with Byte, B-Y-T-E, because I was doing IT recruitment, right? Genius. 2019 was a total, unmitigated financial disaster. I didn't actually make a single dollar from recruitment in 2019. And in the meantime, we had 3 or 4 more miscarriages. But we'd moved in together, we were in love, and things were progressing. I liquidated all of my super. My 401k, whatever you want to call it, in Brazil. I bought a bunch of cryptocurrency, which I liquidated at the lowest point in the last 6 years. Just to stay afloat, because we would have starved to death. And at this point, I knew that I wanted to help people. And I knew that I wanted to become known as the world's most positively influential speaker. Because in my pursuit of personal development, and I'd become a ferocious reader, I'd come to learn and figured out that some of the people that you might see online, social media, aren't exactly who they say they are. And that happens in all industries. And I'm not here to judge, they're on their own path, whatever. But I don't want to follow people that are doing one thing and saying another. Anyone else agree with that?
Yeah.
So 2020 rolls around, and with my tail between my legs, flamingo. With my tail between my legs, I take a job back at a recruitment company in February of 2020. And the good thing about recruitment, it was a six-figure, it was about $100,000 package. It was good. It was enough for us to survive. I'd already been in a ton of debt from my gambling. So with the lost money from 2019, I was basically cooked. Nearly went bankrupt 4 times in 2019. How I didn't is a miracle of God itself. But I eat my hat and I take this job. And 7 weeks later, the world shuts down. And because I didn't earn any money, according to the tax department in 2019, I didn't qualify for any of the government handouts. So we're locked in our apartment in South Bank in Melbourne. The rent's $3,200 a month. The dole was about $300 a month. And Anna already had a mortgage from a previous relationship that she was already covering. She wasn't earning crazy money either. And I'm like, how the heck am I going to become a speaker when there are no more speaking engagements? And Anna and I just happened to be in Adelaide in March for the Professional Speakers Australia conference that was the last event that happened in 2020. And I remember I was a brand new speaker at that point. And I remember seeing people in the hallways, people that were making 7 figures a year from speaking, losing a year worth of speaking engagements like that. And I was like, this is fascinating. We get back to Melbourne in lockdown. How can I get my message out to the world? A podcast. Fantastic. How many people started a podcast in 2020? What? Just Anna? Who thought about it? Who has a podcast, by the way? Okay. Who listens to podcasts? Is it just about everyone? And even if you listen to the radio, you probably listen to a podcast type thing anyway, right? So the first few guests were local Australian speakers, and I was very blessed to have some amazing Australian speakers come on as my first guests. And the great thing about interviewing professional speakers is that they're really easy to interview when you're an experienced podcast host. And I was like, how am I going to get this message out to the world? I knew that I needed to be seen alongside other people that were way further along than I. And I remember January 2nd, 2020, long before lockdown, a mentor friend of mine, a beautiful lady by the name of Carolyn, a Scottish lady, said to me, Laban, you need to spend time with people that are a lot further along than you. And because of my recruitment background, I had developed a pretty gnarly skill at cold calling people. Has anyone here heard of Brene Brown? So I rang Brene Brown, January 2nd, 2020. And she picked up the phone and I had her direct sell. And she said, hi, this is Brene. in that southern drawl. And I said, Brene Brown. She said, yes, it is. I said, Brene Brown, it's Laban Ditchburn from Melbourne, Australia here. I always like to put a geographical location in there. And she said, oh, hi, Laban. How can I help? Clearly realising that some random guy had just got her phone number. And I said, Brene, and I'm standing up when I do this, probably on my tippy toes like I am now. I've been instructed by my mentor that I need to spend time with people that are much further along than I, and I wondered if you were interested in sharing some ideas. I didn't have a book, I don't have a podcast, I didn't really have anything. And God bless Brene Brown, she said, Laban, I'm about to sit down and have New Year's Day dinner with my family, but if you'd be so kind to send me an email with what you had in mind, I'll come back to you. I said, thank you very much, I got her email address. And I spent the next day putting together the worst 1 minute sizzle reel that I will never show you guys or anyone. I've ordered it to be destroyed when I die in my will. Just kidding, I don't have a will. But it's so painful to watch. And I don't mind listening to myself back on podcasts, I don't mind seeing myself on video or whatever. And I sent this bio of who I was, and I sent it to her, and God bless this woman. She replied 2 days later. She said, Dear Laban, thank you for your email. With what I have with commitments with family and university at the moment, I can't give this the attention that it deserves. I wish you all the very best. That was a pivotal moment in my life, because if you've ever met anyone who might be a bit further along than you, that you've often admired or looked up to, and then they've treated you badly, has anyone experienced that? What does that make you want to do next time? Anyone want care to answer? Justine, you're nodding. Do you mind if I put you on the spot? What does that make you want to do the next time?
Just prove them wrong.
Okay, that's a very good answer. So I had that Brene Brown thing in my back pocket. I started the podcast of 7 episodes through, and I'm like, I need to get someone really interesting. There's a gentleman by the name of Les Brown. Has anyone heard of Les Brown? Largely regarded as one of the greatest transformational speakers of our generation. He's nearly 80 now, and he was married to Gladys Knight from The Temptations. I think it was The Temptations, it was, yeah. And he was a politician for a long time. Fabe has been introduced. Fabe, what are your thoughts on Les Brown in the last 3 months since you come to learn about him in more detail?
He's amazing.
Why is that relevant, Laban? Well, Les Brown has a very big presence on YouTube, and his YouTube videos have gotten me through very dark times during my transformational journey. And I was like, I'd love to interview Les Brown. So I rang him. And it was Saturday morning about 6 a.m. I'm lying next to Anna, I'm in bed, and I like to sleep with no clothes on. TMI, but it's important for the story. And I ring the phone, and it picks up. And in my excitement, I jump out of bed on the 38th story of 241 City Road, South Bank, and all the construction guys who are doing their thing over there get a big eyeful. I don't think they appreciated that very much. Hi, Les speaking, he says. Les Brown, I said. Yes, it is. Les Brown, it's Laban Ditchburn from Melbourne, Australia here. Hello, my boy, how can I help you? And I said, Les, I'm a huge fan of you and your work, and I'm also the host of an incredible podcast series called Become Your Own Superhero that had 10 subscribers, and 5 of them were family, most of whom have unsubscribed since. But he didn't ask. But if he did, I would have told him, but he didn't, so I didn't. And I said, I'd be honoured if you came on and shared your amazing story with our audience. When are you available? And he said, well, when are you thinking, boy? And I said, to be honest, Les, whenever it works with you is really good with me. So we scheduled it for Tuesday midnight, a few days later. And thanks again to my wonderful wife, Anna. She said, I'm pretty sure you're interviewing Les Brown tonight. I go, no, it's tomorrow. 12 p.m, we'll get that. I jump on, I've got a 13-year-old Toshiba laptop. The most rickety Zoom setup you've ever seen in your entire life. And bear in mind, I'm sober at this point, I'm healthy, I'm running. I never finished high school. I never went to university. I don't have any qualifications at all. But I have belief. And that's probably what matters. And Les Brown comes on, and what I'm about to tell you I have on video. And I believe it to be one of the greatest ever miracles captured on video. And I said to him, hey Les, what do you think of the name of the podcast, Become Your Own Superhero? Now, a lot of you don't know Les Brown, but I would encourage you, after tonight, go and check him out on YouTube or wherever you find your content. And I promise you, you will not have a bad day after listening to his stuff. Lesbrown. Beautiful voice. He's won the Golden Gavel Award. He's got every accolade in the speaking realm you can possibly imagine, and his voice is just like hot chocolate, melting through your ear holes. I said, Les, what do you think of the name of the podcast? And the way that he described it back to me over the next 5 minutes just completely and utterly humbled me. I just verbally diarrheaed my story of transformation to him because I was so he just butted me up, and the drink and the drugs and the gambling and the thing, and he just listened with the patience of a saint. It's a really powerful sign of charisma, being a really powerful listener, just shutting up and letting people do their thing. And he did exactly that. It's not his first rodeo, I can tell you that much for nothing. But he let me finish, a bit like Mary did on the Gamblers Helpline. And he said, congratulations, Laban. I said, thanks, Les. He goes, do you have a book? And I go, no. He said, if you're going to be a speaker, it'll help with your credibility and lots of other benefits. I said, oh, that's good advice. He said, who was the most influential person in your life when you were 5 years of age? Who was the most influential person in your life? Is it Peter?
Yeah.
At 5 years of age?
Parents.
50-50? Like mum and dad equal?
Equal, yeah.
Would you mind sharing one positive attribute you got from each?
My confidence.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know. I was allowed to be a bright, confident person, and they just encouraged that.
I mean, confidence is great, right? When was the last time anyone asked you that question?
Never.
Has anyone ever been asked that question? I'd never been asked that question, and he made me think about it for the first time in my life. And like I said earlier, Mum and I had a very dysfunctional relationship at that time, but he made me think about the positive attributes that I got from my mother. And it turns out there's a lot. She was unconditionally loving. She was spiritual. She was tenacious. And he starts writing these things down. Gets all the attributes from me. And he looks up at me and he says, Laban, this is a God moment. We haven't even started the bloody podcast at this point. He said, Laban, you're going to write a book. You're going to call it Bet on You because of the pathological degenerate gambling. He said, you're going to turn the book into a keynote speech. You're going to turn the keynote into a 3-day retreat. And even if you stuff this up, you'll make 6 figures in the next 12 months. Now this is May 14, 2020. He said, and I'm going to interview you on my platform that has 4.5 million followers and promote your book. And, Laban, I'm going to write the foreword to your book. And in a moment of complete and utter insanity, I didn't even say thank you. I said, Les, if you're going to write the foreword to my book, I'll have it to you by June 30, 2020. And he said, I'm going to hold you to that, boy. And in 6 weeks, during the strictest lockdowns of anywhere on planet Earth at the time, under no other circumstance, I pumped out 33,000 words of Bet On You with the foreword by Les Brown, my hero, and completely and utterly changed my life in the process. Well, what's this got to do with tonight's topic? I was a nobody. I had no qualifications. I wasn't earning money as an entrepreneur. I was nothing. And I could have easily seen myself as nothing. And the people that I speak to day, quite often see themselves as nothing or less than. But when they start to see for themselves possibility about maybe being the world's best in their chosen niche, or niche, as I had to translate for all my American brothers and sisters, that's when things start to change. I know one lady Googled me before you showed up tonight. Did anyone else do any research on me? Who's curious about the world's best courage coach as a declaration? Who thought I was a dick? You can be honest. Does anyone have any issue with it? And I promise you there's no judgment.
I thought under whose opinion?
Ah, thank you very much. Great point. Here's the great thing about the world's best courage coach. Until they have a competition run out of Reno, Nevada for the world's best courage coach competition, I can take that declaration. And you might go, well, that's pretty arrogant. Well, it's nothing to do with ego. It's a declaration of how I choose to show up in the world. And if we fast forward from May 14, 2020 to having the book come to fruition, to September 2021, my wife has just been requested by Russian authorities to go back within 7 days to her hometown of Sakhalin in Russia, which is just north of Japan. During Victorian lockdowns, there was an international travel ban. And if I got into the details, which I won't do tonight, about why she was required to go back to Russia and the resulting rejection from the Australian government the first time around about why she wasn't allowed to leave, you would all burst into balls of flames of anger. However, the good news was the second time got approved and Anna was able to leave the country and make it to Russia within the 7-day subpoena timeframe. Thank God. Meanwhile, I'm back in Melbourne getting ready to pack up our house because we were planning to move to the Sunshine Coast. But I'm broke. And I got introduced to a community of really amazing coaches out of the US, a lot of them based in Arizona. And there's one particular guy by the name of Steve Hardison. Has anyone heard of a gentleman by the name of Steve Hardison, aka the Ultimate Coach? I'm not surprised. This gentleman, up until 2022, was an enigma. And he's known as the Ultimate Coach. He's a now 67-year-old Mormon guy out of Mesa, Arizona, who has coached people like Byron Katie, Iyanla Van Zandt, who is Oprah Winfrey's coach, some of the top entrepreneurs and professional athletes all over the world. Becky Robbins, who was Tony Robbins' former wife, she's a current client of his. And this guy had no presence anywhere. He had no book, no podcast, nothing. He even turned down being on the Oprah Winfrey Show 4 times. Now, who here would probably benefit their business being on the Oprah Winfrey Show, right? Especially the book club. He didn't want it. But there was one video on YouTube that existed. And if you want to check this out, even if you're not in the coaching space, it's TBOLIT NFL. TBOLIT NFL stands for the best offensive linebacker in the NFL. And I promise you, it's nothing to do with sports. This video transformed my life. It impacted me so dramatically that there was a fundamental shift that took place. And as part of my entrepreneurial journey, being a speaker and podcaster, naturally coaching comes into it. And this guy was super inspiring. To give you an idea, he charges $200,000 for 50 hours coaching. And you have to fly to his home in Arizona to do it. And here's people, bless you, coming from all over the world to come and coach with them. And you might think, oh, that's insane. That's what I first thought too. But as you learn about this guy and you learn about the work he's done and just how powerful and the kind of transformations he's able to get for people, it really is inspiring. I watched this video and I'm so moved by it. I said to myself, I need to speak to Steve Hardison to see if he's the real deal. Because like I mentioned earlier, there's plenty of people out there that profess to be one thing and are not. And a really good way to tell is to have a conversation with people, I think. So I got his cell phone number like I do every other person, and I rang Steve Hardison. He picked up the phone. He said, "Hey, this is Steve." And I go, "Steve Hardison?" He goes, "Yes, it is." I go, "Steve Hardison, it's Laban Ditchburn from Melbourne, Australia here." He goes, "Laban, so great to hear from you. I've been waiting for this call all my life." I swear to God that happened. And I was like, who is this? I said, "Steve, I just watched this amazing video of you speaking 10 years ago, and it completely transformed me. And I just wanted to ask you one very specific question." Now, before I tell you what the question was, it's important to note that this guy was loaded, happily married for 45 years or something, in great shape. He didn't really need anything. And that's an important distinction about making these connections and these outbounds. It's always from a place of what value can I add this person's life. It's a very different energy to what can I get. With Brene, it was a bit more what can I get? And then as I learned about how to switch that around, like how can I add value to this person's life? I said, "Steve, I just want to ask you one very specific question." He said, "Sure, Laban, what is it?" I go, "What do you need help with?" He goes, "Wow, Laban, I want to acknowledge you for asking that question." He goes, "You know what, I'm 64 years old, 8% body fat, do 10 miles a day, got everything a man could ever want, but I really want to thank you for asking me that question." I said, "Oh, you're welcome, Steve, no worries." I said, "Are you still not doing podcast interviews?" He goes, "That's right." And I go, "Oh, no worries." I said, the reason I ask is I'm a writer, podcaster, and well on my way to being known as the world's most positively influential speaker. But actually, someone that I was talking to recently said there was too much ego associated with that statement. And Steve, the devout Mormon, verbatim said, "Laban, you tell that person to fuck off. Do you know who I am?" And I go, "Who are you, Steve?" Or evangelical. He goes, "I'm the best coach in the world." Now, I must reiterate, and I apologise for the curse word, Fabe, it's the only one. he said it without any ego at all. None. And I was like so curious to know what this was. It was a self-assuredness that was totally without ego. And in the world that we live in, that is challenging. I had an incredible 13-minute conversation with this guy. And I got off that call and I rang a gentleman by the name of Chris Doris. Chris Doris is known as the mental toughness coach who's coached PGA golfers, NFL players, and he's coached under Steve Hardison before. And him and I got to know each other in the preceding 3 or 4 months before I had this phone call with Steve. And I rang Chris Doris and I said, "Hey Chris, I just spoke to Steve Hardison." He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Mate, I just had a great 13-minute chat with Steve Hardison, the ultimate coach." He goes, "What are you talking about?" I go, "I just had a really great chat with Steve." "Why?" He goes, "Do you have any idea of the gift of courage you had to bring to the world?" And in that moment, the world's best courage coach was created. And Chris, who charges $3,000 an hour for his consulting work, gave me 4 hours of his time for free and helped me formulate a script that I would commit to memory and then start to cold call the CEOs of the biggest companies on the planet. And so we did this, and I started the cold calling process. And it went a bit like this. I got the CEO of Zoom's phone number, Eric Yang, who's a very heavily accented Asian guy who was on his car phone in the middle of Malibu somewhere, who couldn't quite understand what was going on, and it was breaking in and out. That didn't go anywhere. And I tried calling someone at Cisco and someone at Walmart and some of these big companies, and I wasn't getting through. As you can possibly imagine, getting through to Fortune 50 companies is not exactly, an everyday walk in the park. It was getting late in the US, so I decided to start ringing Australia. And I was looking, researching. Is anyone here from Victoria originally? Have you ever heard of Hodges Real Estate?
Yes.
Hodges Real Estate, not a massive real estate company, but the oldest real estate company in Australia. Yep. Best of my understanding. Is that your understanding? Yeah. And there was a CEO by the name of Tony Zarka, and I got his phone number. And I'll tell you how I get these numbers as well if you're interested afterwards. It's legal, most importantly. And I rang Tony's cell and he picks up and says, "Hi, this is Tony." And I go, "Tony Zarka?" He said, "Yes, it is." I go, "Tony, it's Laban from Melbourne here." Didn't need to say Australia. He goes, "Oh, hi Laban, do we know each other?" I said, "Tony, we've never spoken before, but today's your lucky day." And he laughs. He goes, "Laban, why is it my lucky day?" I said, "Because Tony, I'm the world's best courage coach, and I teach your people how to take bold, massive, and courageous action so that they can facilitate their own miraculous outcomes." And Tony, off the back of that outrageous cold call, invited me back the following Wednesday during lockdown via Zoom to pitch for training and coaching for his organisation. It had about 100 staff. Now, at this point in my coaching career, I was very green. Green because I was new, and green because I felt ill at what I got myself into. And I was charging about $100 an hour Australian for my stuff. Now, one of the things that Steve Hardison told me about was the power is in the listener. And I keep going on about this, but it's good. So I was like, "Okay, Laban, you got this." We jump on this Zoom meeting. And I asked Tony a question about what direction he wanted to take the business. And he spoke for 45 minutes, uninterrupted. And in that 45 minutes, he told me everything I needed to know about how or if I could help that business. And it turns out, I thought I could. And when he finished his 45-minute run, and I don't think he'd ever been listened to like that before in his life, by the way, I said, "Tony, what about becoming the best real estate company in Victoria. He looks back at me and looks up and his eyes sort of get wide. And I go, well, what about becoming the best real estate company in Australia? And now he really gets excited and his eyes are really wide. He's starting to see possibility for the first time in his life. And I said, Tony, you do realise in order to be the best real estate company in Australia, you need to become the best real estate CEO in Australia. 30 seconds later, Tony Zaka, a 55-year-old man from the UAE originally, is yelling full stretch with both arms up in the air, I'm the best real estate CEO in the world. One of the most insane moments of my life, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. And on that call, he said, what's this going to look like? And I quickly tabulated in my head what kind of work was going to be required to create the kind of outcomes that they wanted. And I proposed a $250,000 3-month project, which worked out to be about $3,000 an hour. Involved a bunch of one-on-one with him, his executive leadership team, and a bunch of other keynote stuff as well. It was $100 an hour. Now you would think that you would be laughed out of the room, mocked, swore at, blasphemed at, hung up on. But Tony looked back at me, he said, Laban, he said, I physically do not have the liquid to spend that right now. But let me see what I can do. And in that moment, ladies, the glass ceiling that existed in my brain of what I thought was possible was eviscerated, and who I thought that I could impact. And maybe you're all hoping for, and Tony signed the contract. Never happened. But it didn't matter. The impact had been made. And from that moment on, the world's best courage coach, as a declaration to how I choose to show up in the world, was manifested. And as time went on, it was being reaffirmed into the universe when I was being interviewed on podcasts, on stage, introductions, business opportunities. So now I'm kind of all in. And I have to ask myself every single morning, how would the world's best courage coach conduct himself? Because I have to be in integrity with that statement. Because you can't go around making ridiculous statements like the world's best courage coach if you are not going to be in integrity with that statement. Who here would love tonight to find your world's best statement? No? Now, quick caveat. What you choose to do with this, it can remain in your head, or you can blast it everywhere. It is very nuanced. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think there's anyone on the planet that's talking about this stuff. And I know because worldsbestcouragecoach.com was available. And worldsbestmastermind.com was available, and all the world's best are available. So maybe I just got onto it early. But I want you to pay attention to this. This is the whole point, the whole backstory. Why am I listening to this bloody New Zealander? It has to be intangible and non-quantifiable. Intangible and non-quantifiable. And here's why it's important. And I'm going to come back to you in a minute, if that's all right. Who hasn't had some Laban love so far? Can I ask you a question? What's your name?
Naomi.
Naomi. Nice to meet you, Naomi.
Hi.
Can I put the microphone so that ladies can hear you?
Sure.
Naomi, what do you do?
I work for my husband doing tile removal. So we're in joint business together.
Okay, thank you.
So I've just started.
Can you ask me what I do?
What do you do?
I'm the world's best courage coach.
I'm the world's best tile remover.
Well, we are.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot or embarrass you. There's a reason why I'm sharing this. Do you notice the difference? And the difference may not be that apparent just now, but what it is, in my own humble experience, is a clarity that people get that are in the personal development space, which is my space. They go, oh, okay, yeah. What does that look like, Laban? Well, I teach people how to take bold, massive and courageous action so that they can facilitate their own miraculous outcomes. And I do that through my speaking, my coaching, my book, and my podcast. And they go, oh, what's your podcast about? Or what's your book about? What's your coaching about? And it facilitates further conversation. Whereas if you talk to someone who's a lawyer, and no offense to any lawyers here, you go, oh, what sort of law do you specialise? They go, commercial, and you go, it's just human nature. It's fascinating. World's best. What? What does that look like? 99.9% of anyone that's ever heard that come out of my mouth has responded positively. And there's been a couple of really confused looks where I don't think they've heard what it was. And maybe one person that responded really negatively. Now, I'm not a numbers guy, but they're pretty good numbers. For people that are outside of your industry, you go to any barbecue or you're at the shop, and people comprehend life at a second and third grade level, which is why every president that wins the presidential election is the one that spoke at the lowest level academically. I don't know if you know that. Fascinating stat. People have a hard enough time trying to figure out their lives. And when we make it really easy to invite them in, what do you do, Laban? I'm the world's best courage coach. Wow, what does that look like? Well, conversation, how can I help you? Oh, ding, 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 ding. My podcast has generated $300 in Google ad revenue in 4.5 years. I have been censored, deboosted, demonetized and hammered for my choice in some of the people I've wanted to platform and humanize. And I make no apologies for that. What I have generated, and I worked this out when I created a program last year, is more than $1.1 million USD, which is probably close to about 1.7 Australian, in free stuff from podcast guests and the introductions that they've made. And I can tell you the people that matter the most in my life, and everyone matters, but the ones that I want to spend the most times with are the ones that get the world's best courage coach. And I think, I haven't asked, I think some people like being around someone who has the audacity to call themselves the world's best anything. Because if I called myself the third best courage coach, would you even be sitting here? Okay, back to you for a second. So it's non-quantifiable and it's intangible. It's a challenging exercise, by the way. Very challenging, and it should be, because it's not for everyone. I want to throw to any questions about this process, because it's pretty complex, and it's not that you're not smart enough to understand it. You are easily, but it is very challenging. Faye.
How do you deal with the thought that would come that saying that would make you appear to people very arrogant?
Great. Did everyone hear that?
Yep.
The great thing about Les Brown, his famous quote, many of them, one of them is, what people think of me is none of my spiritual business. Now, it's easier said than done. But when I was talking to these beautiful Brazilian ladies earlier and asking them some questions about some of the things that they're looking for help in, and do you mind me sharing what the thing was that you were looking to expand upon?
We are looking for connections because I moved from Sydney. And I live here for 1 year. And we feel like we need to build connections and networking to be more engaged with the Sunshine Coast community.
Obrigado. Thank you. De nada. So as a possibility, now both these ladies have a similar quest, right? And being an immigrant, even being from New Zealand, moving to Australia, my father's from Melbourne as well, that was a noticeable difference. And I've lived in about 7 different countries now, I really empathise with what you're trying to do. As a possibility, wouldn't it be awesome if you didn't have to go and find anyone at all, and rather that they found you? That's easier. Because here's the beautiful thing, and whether you have any spirituality level or not, and I'm willing to bet that most of the people here do, is that energetically, once you start being in alignment with what your true purpose here is on planet Earth, the universe will conspire to bring you everything you need. Capiche? Who doesn't believe me when I say that, by the way? No judgment. I never used to think it was possible. And I have witnessed one ridiculous miracle after another. And you're probably wondering what happened with Les Brown. Well, at the end of that podcast, where he gave me that incredible blessing of the book, I said to Les, what do you need help with? And he said, well, what did you have in mind? Now, I do a lot of research on my guests, and I learned that he'd overcome prostate cancer twice. And they'd put him on a steroid, and he'd put on 100 pounds, about 50 kilos, and developed type 2 diabetes. Well, this was a subject that I knew a little bit about because I had reversed my pre-diabetes and only interviewed some of the most brilliant doctors on the planet on my show earlier. So I said, Les, I lost a bunch of weight, put on a bunch of muscle doing this particular thing. He goes, send me everything you got. Send him all that information. Then couldn't contact him for like 7 months. Sent off the book to him, didn't hear back. And I was talking to a friend of mine, this guy, Dr. Chris Kenobi, who's like a retired eye surgeon, ophthalmologist, who's an expert in seed oils, vegetable oils. They ain't good, by the way, folks. And I was telling him the same story that I told you guys. And he said, would you send me the video, like the real life footage of what I just explained earlier? The very next day, he sent me an email about this long saying, Laban, I want to help Les Brown. I'll fly to Atlanta from Colorado. I'll help him. I can help him with his health. I can show him. I can introduce him to people for free. I'll do this. And Chris Kenobi is a very well-known guy, highly respected. Well, about a month later, I had a 3-way Zoom meeting with Les Brown, Dr. Chris Kenobi, and myself, and I'm staring at my screen in absolute disbelief at what is transpiring. Little old Laban Ditchburn, aka the world's best courage coach, has co-created a true miracle. Now, I can't claim full responsibility for this, but I'll take some of it. Les Brown lost the 100 pounds and put his type 2 diabetes into full remission. And I know that because I had dinner with him and Anna at his home in Atlanta in 2022. They say never meet your heroes, but I call BS on that one. And when we're at the dinner table, just the 3 of us, Anna said to Les, what do you need help with, Les? And he burst into tears, the greatest transformational speaker of all time, burst into tears because his youngest of 10 children has a mental health and drug addiction problem that he cannot fix, and felt completely helpless. And I watched again in amazement as Anna gets up and hugged this big burly man in his 70s. A surreal moment that has ingrained itself in my psyche. And I'm not telling you this stuff to gloat or to brag or to seem like I'm better than it. I'm not. All I am is someone who's made a decision about how I'm going to show up in the world. And I love hearing stories about people finding their world's best statement, because it's so unbelievably uncomfortable when you first do it that it forces you to move through that comfort zone till you get to a point where you look back and you go, look how much I've grown. And who cares if technically you're not the world's best? It's not the point. It's how we show up. And that we are perpetually getting better and better and better. And if you were to spend 24 hours a day with 24 hours, 7 days a week with me, you would never hear me use negative self-talk. And you go, well, that's pretty delusional. It's not delusional. I just reframe the negative self-talk. I'm getting better and better. Am I the best speaker on the planet? Not yet. Even if that's my goal, it may not be. It might evolve into something else. The whole point of this is that, like I said at the very beginning, it doesn't matter how young or old you are. Like, you all got so much more to give than you are probably already giving. And if you stay in the same place, I ain't here to judge, but if you feel like there's a little bit more that you want to impact the world on, because it's all about service. The thing that we're lied about going to college and white picket fence and the 2.4 kids, the whole scam around, climbing the corporate ladder. They know, interviewing all the 70, 80, 90, 100-year-olds about what brings them happiness, and it ain't that. It's service. And if you disagree with me, that's okay. Service. How do I serve at the highest level? The great thing is that this whole, how can I add value to someone's life, bleeds out to every single interaction that I have. It doesn't matter whether they are the CEO of a global company or the lowest possible job at a hospital. And as a result, you get really good at helping solve people's problems. And that makes you a really good coach, and a really good business owner, and a really good employer, and a really good mother, and a really good sister, and a really good grandmother, and a really good wife. And who doesn't want to be better at all those things? I love my ladies. I love opportunities to speak in these kind of environments where it's kind of like a safe space. I'm not asking you to step into your masculinity. I'm not telling you to become and replicate like the male CEO. We don't need that. We need you to understand that you are, you know what, I am the world's best, insert your chosen niche here. And whether you decide to brand that as part of like what Fabe's done off the back of one of our conversations, does it still feel awkward?
No, not now. I did it first. It took weeks. It's taken weeks to get to that point.
So Fabe and I haven't spoken about this, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but like, has there been any business opportunities or anything that's obvious to you as a direct result of that?
Not yet.
Any introductions or people that have just responded that wouldn't probably respond how you used to say?
It's in conjunction with the launch of a new website, so I probably haven't actually been saying that. Tonight's the first time I actually said it in public.
Okay.
But it's all over the website that's about to relaunch.
Bravo, by the way. Can we come back to you? I didn't forget. So, have you any more time to think about tweaking the statement?
Just been listening.
That's very studious of you. Do you want to have a little?
We'll have a crack at
Do
it.
you want to have a crack?
Yeah.
Because the fundamentals are the same. The principles are the same. Non-quantifiable, intangible. And that way, you're not going to be competing with anyone. And energetically, we're all kind of like a little bit different, aren't we? Like, you probably may not resonate with World's Best Courage Coach in the way that I wouldn't resonate with what your statement is. And if you do, that's cool. But with probing and prodding, it seems like people kind of find their own little thing. It's like their fashion. If they truly look at what makes them feel good, and like their fashion's usually very unique. So, tell me one more time what it is that you do.
I am the world's best video visibility strategist for women over 50.
Okay. Why does it need to be for women over 50?
Because they're fun. I can't be asked with the young ones.
Do you, if you're totally...
We actually have a very different, women over 40 predominantly, but women over 50 very much so, have been conditioned through imagery that is very specific. So our cultural, to your question, is the way that women over 50 see themselves, hear themselves, berate themselves is really particular to a screen image, to a photograph, to something. It is fucking, it's just going to be out.
Gotcha. Okay. So, has anyone heard the quote, "The thing is not the thing"?
Yeah.
Anyone heard that? The thing is not the thing with this. So, who do you, like, with the World's Best Courage Coach, I looked at like, what's the problem that I solve in the world, or try to solve? And it's helping relieve people of fear. Well, that doesn't sound great. What's the positive opposite affirmational component? Courage, right? And it's the first value of the Stoics, and it's like, everyone wants more courage. So that's the thing that I do. So what's the problem that you help?
Confidently be on camera, I would say.
Yeah, can you expand
So
upon that a little bit more? Like, what are the ramifications of people being more confident on camera?
I think that, well, it depends what they want. Ultimately, it depends what they want, but you get to show up and be the leading lady of your own life.
Ooh. Who liked Leading Lady?
Yes.
Can we have some fun with this?
Yeah.
What about something along the lines of World's Best Leading Lady something?
Confidence coach or something. I don't know.
And I don't mean to
I'm
put
not
you...
really a coach because I'm not very I'm not like you. I'm not that nice.
You think I'm nice? That's great. Thanks.
I'm like a bit of
It doesn't need ending coach, by the way.
yeah, no, I'm not a coach. I'll teach or mentor or show or consult or I don't know. It's a big picture.
Are you struggling a little bit with the feeling of saying that?
No, I'm not. I'm just, it's a fucking full moon and, you know.
And the parasites are out.
Full moon's been a big week.
Okay.
And I just really don't know how to actually put all those pieces together because it is more than just the mindset for someone. It is literally, you know, I'm a video film producer that's come up from a baby, so I understand what's happening, technology, everything. So I'm like, okay, women over 50, we're going to be really invisible in about 3 years if we don't cut through this very fast.
I totally get that. And if I might say,
Yes.
and this comes up a lot, especially with my ladies, you may not think that you're a coach, but you probably are coaching people in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, I have programs and stuff, but coaches are nice. Just not nice. I can't do the fluffy bump.
So, and I don't want to continue to push this, but you can kind of see a little bit of resistance from time to time with some of this stuff. And that's okay. It's tough. The question that I might pose, that you can go and meditate on and whatever, is what is that real problem that I'm helping women solve, or anyone solve? And spend some time thinking about it, because I have never heard world's best leading lady consultant or whatever. The whole point is that you are creating this for a couple of reasons. One, for yourself, to give you even more clarity about how you're able to help people in the world. Two, for other people. And, well, in that second one, so that they can understand what we do like that. And the faster people know, like, and trust and understand us, the more likely they are to do business with us, form relationships, you name it. Who else would like to have a little play with?
Can I ask the room a question? What about the world's best leading lady producer?
Oh, who likes that, by the way?
It sounds like you're a
That's
producer.
such a mega club. That's one that the industry really will be looking at.
Can we practice this? Can we? Hey, nice to meet you. What's your name?
Sally.
Sally, Laban. Nice to meet you. What do you do?
I'm the world's best leading lady producer.
Ooh, what does that look like? Now, you don't have this yet, so I'm going to go easy on you, all right? Because you need the second line. What does that look like? Well, feel free to steal, plagiarize. I teach 50 plus women how to take bold, massive, and whatever, so that they can facilitate their own miraculous outcomes. And I do that through my...
Evolve your visibility program.
You do that through the video production?
Yeah.
What are the things that you do? What are this, like, for me, writing, speaking, podcast, coaching.
I'm sorry, Rep Follows. You mean like
That's okay. So
put them on platforms, whatever.
your day-to-day job, what are the tasks that you do? Like, are you interviewing? Are you filming? Are you...
I film, I teach, I create content,
So you got a... Okay, excellent. You got a YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel.
Have you got a book?
It's half written, but I don't... Yeah,
Not yet. Okay, so you got a YouTube channel. You got... you don't have a podcast.
I have like little shows that I put out in different places, depending on what I'm doing.
Oh, so you do have a podcast.
No, only on socials.
Where do you find most of your podcasts, folks?
Only on Facebook, really. So in private groups, like I'm really private. I just for other people.
I'm trying to help
Sorry,
you
thank
here.
you.
All right.
I like being real. I'm a guy that doesn't like to be out the front. I want my leading ladies out the front.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Great. Me too, right? However, when it comes
I
to...
produce content. I produce stuff.
Okay.
Wherever it is they need to go. So if you're a podcaster, whatever your next platform is that needs you to get to the next level of wherever it is you want to go. I take people from one level to the next level.
Okay, now we're getting
Either a
somewhere.
6 figure, 7 figure, 8 figure, I'll take you to 9 figures or 10 figures or whatever.
We're getting somewhere.
I cheat the system.
So, nice to meet you. What do you do?
I'm the world's best leading lady producer.
Wow. Wow. What does that look like?
Well, I create opportunities for women to step into new platforms and new levels of income creation.
And you do that how?
Podcasts, YouTube channels, signature style, capsule wardrobe, placing them in different situations.
Can I get an amen from...
Thank you.
Congratulations.
What can I do for you?
Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate that tremendously. And maybe, for those that are interested, you can come and buy a copy of my book if you're interested to learn about all the nitty-gritty that's in there. It's pretty outrageous, but it's pretty funny.
Sally needs to write that down before she begins. That's all right, it's on video.
Oh, okay.
It's a work in progress, but I promise you this: once you nail it, you'll just go, you'll go, that feels good. And what a difference! I couldn't tell you one word of the first first attempt of what was in there. It was like, now
Yeah, I love it. It's really brilliant.
there'll be a lot of imposter. He comes, he knocks at night. Oh, you don't even call yourself that. And for anyone that dares challenge you on it, what kind of human being is going to go out of their way to say, we're a certification for the world's best courage coach? It will magnetize the people that you want in your life and polarize immediately, I promise you this, the people you don't. And you'll start attracting more people into your life that want to do business with you, and you can charge more because they'll know, like, and trust you, and they'll see you as an expert because you are an expert. Because in order to make a declaration like that, you have to be in integrity, so you will go out of your way to show up as the world's best thing. Do you see where I'm going with this? Anytime I ever feel like I'm working in a one-on-one environment with someone and I need to be honest about something that's happened, I have to verbalize it. Because if it comes out later on that I withheld something or there's a conflict of interest or whatever, I'm done. I am done. And being more honest with ourselves firstly, and then with others, will transform the people that you spend time with. Because the people at the top that have health, wealth, and relationships, they don't need to be billionaires. They have functional marriages, they have abundance, and they have vitality. They are the people I want to spend the most time with. We become, and you've heard this quote a million times, and earn within a few $1,000s of the 5 people we spend the most time with. I can hand to heart tell you that is 100% accurate. All of my former circle of friends, when I quit drinking, I lost 97% overnight of my former massive social circle, not because they're bad people, we've got nothing in common anymore. And I reconnected with a friend of mine, James Ropehead Simpson, and his name was Ropehead because he used to have dreads down to here. He's from New Zealand. And I called him up, he's become a Christian, shaved his head, and he no longer parties. And we had the most wonderful conversation. We haven't spoken in 6 years. He was telling me about 2 of my best mates that I haven't spoken to for probably 4 years now, Brad and Simon, who are my biggest haters. And he was telling me how he was very kindly standing up for me when they were going, look at Laban, what is he doing? Laban looks like he's living his best life. And I was very grateful for that. It's the first conversation I've had with anyone from my former social circle that's still in my life. And I said, James, mate, I thank you so much for sticking up for me. Like, not that it mattered, but like, they're just reflecting their own insecurities. They ain't calling themselves the world's best anything anytime soon. They hate themselves, which is why they go and get blind drunk at 44 and do Class A drugs every weekend and cheat on their wives. And I'm not dobbing these guys in because you don't know them. But, and no judgment, like if that's what they want to do, great, but that's not the life that I want to live. Is that how the world's best courage coach would conduct himself? Would he cheat on his wife? No, he wouldn't. I would be insane. Beautiful inside and out. And the woman that I knew I wanted to meet my entire life, it was beginning to think I wouldn't. Do you love hanging around someone calling himself the world's best courage coach? And I'm putting you on the spot here, from a female perspective, what's been the biggest change that you've seen in me since that declaration came about?
Probably lots of clarity, what you want to achieve, and more courage, lots of courage. And I love seeing Laban inspiring other people with his actions. He's not just talking, he's actually showing what to do and how to do to achieve miraculous outcomes.
Thanks, darling. Okay, Fabe, I'm going to wrap this up. I just wanted to thank you all from the bottom of my little boy heart for being such great students. And I want to extend a massive thank you to Fabe for inviting me to speak in front of a room full of women, which is a huge honour for me, and I don't take this lightly at all. And I would love to hear from you, any of those that decide to progress any further with this, what your world's best statement is, and if I can help refine or tweak or reflect something back that helps you step into your next level of greatness, that would be my absolute honour. And like I said as well, I bought some copies of my book if you want to buy them at $20 each, and I'll sign them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. Now, this is just a small gift of appreciation, and I nearly went to the bottle open. And I'm like, I'm sure there's something in Laban's story that says, yeah. So it's not alcohol.
Thank you so much.
It's not drugs.
Do you know what? Even if it was, I would just re-gift it. Maybe not the drugs. Yeah. Thank you very much, Fabi. You are doing amazing work in the world. Appreciate it.
Thank you.